the warm glow of early morning, the Sanders family stirred with excitement. Today was the day that 11-year-old Michael Sanders had eagerly awaited, his first trip to the zoo. For his father, Adam, it was more than just a fun day out. It was a promise he'd made long ago, a memory he wanted to give his son that he himself never had. Growing up, Adam's family never had the means for such outings, and he had vowed that one day he would share these experiences with his own child. Breakfast was a blur of laughter and buzzing questions, mostly from Michael, whose head was filled with wild ideas of lions, towering giraffes, and mysterious creatures hidden within the zoo's walls. Adam smiled as he watched his son pack his small bag with essentials, a water bottle, a favorite action figure, and a worn picture book on wildlife that had ignited his love for animals. As they left their small apartment in Brooklyn, Adam felt the weight of unspoken worries tugging at his heart. He knew all too well the glances their family often attracted, eyes lingering just a little too long, judgment hidden behind polite smiles. The world wasn't always kind, especially to families like theirs. But today, Adam was determined to push all those concerns aside. Today was about Michael's joy, about his innocence, about a memory they'd carry for years to come. The drive to the zoo was a journey filled with Michael's non-stop chatter. Every word from his son pulled Adam deeper into the present, helping him shake off the anxiety that had been building. When they finally arrived, Michael darted toward the entrance, eyes wide with wonder. Adam and his wife, Lily, shared a look of pure happiness as they followed him. But as they handed their tickets to the attendant, Adam's gaze was caught by a figure in the distance, a tall man in a zoo uniform, his eyes fixed on them with a frown. The name tag read Earl, and his stare felt unsettling. Adam brushed it off, unwilling to let a stranger's cold glance ruin their day. Holding Michael's hand tightly, he walked forward, unaware that the day would take a turn that none of them could ever have predicted. The zoo unfolded like a dream for Michael, each exhibit sparking fresh waves of awe and delight. Their first stop was the aviary, a large, netted dome filled with vibrant, exotic birds flitting from branch to branch. Michael's laughter rang out as a bright red parrot perched close by, tilting its head as if studying him. Lily snapped photos, capturing her son's wide-eyed wonder, while Adam felt a surge of warmth. This was what he had always dreamed of, a happy family, making memories together. But as they moved from one exhibit to another, Adam couldn't shake a nagging feeling. Every so often, he noticed Earl lingering nearby, his gaze sharp and intense. Earl's expression was unreadable, yet the way he hovered at a distance made Adam uneasy. He tried to shrug it off, reminding himself that they were just another family enjoying the day, and that Earl was simply an employee going about his duties. Still, Adam found himself gripping Michael's hand a little tighter. They continued to the reptile house, where Michael marveled at the immense snakes coiled under heat lamps and the brightly colored lizards lounging on rocks. Michael's fascination knew no bounds, his excitement a contagious force that had Adam and Lily grinning at each other. For a moment, Adam forgot his worries, lost in the beauty of his son's joy and the simple magic of family time. After a quick snack, they reached the main attraction, the lion enclosure. Michael's excitement reached a peak as he pressed his face against the glass, eyes wide with awe as he watched the magnificent lions lounging in the midday sun. One lion, a powerful male with a golden mane, lifted its head, its amber eyes meeting Michael's through the glass. Michael beamed, mesmerized, and Adam's heart swelled with pride at his son's fearlessness. But then, out of the corner of his eye, Adam saw Earl standing nearby, his gaze colder and more intense than before. There was something in his stare that felt almost hostile, as if their happiness was a trespass, an intrusion. Adam felt his jaw clench, anger simmering just below the surface. He had dealt with this quiet hostility all his life, but today Today of all days, he wished he could shield his family from it. Lily noticed Earl too, and she gave Adam's arm a gentle squeeze. "Let's keep moving," she murmured softly, urging him toward a nearby picnic area where they could sit and let Michael take a break. Adam nodded, casting one last look at Earl before they turned away, hoping he was simply overreacting. As they settled down to eat, Michael chatted animatedly, recounting every sight he'd seen so far. His joy was infectious, momentarily washing away Adam's unease. But that shadow of tension lingered, leaving Adam with the feeling that their perfect day might be hanging by a fragile thread. With renewed excitement, Michael led the way through the zoo, his small hand clutching his father's as he navigated the winding paths. They explored the monkey enclosure, where Michael erupted into laughter watching a baby chimp swing wildly from branch to branch, and the aquarium, where shimmering schools of fish cast a rainbow of colors across his face. Adam felt his heart soar, the beauty of this day washing over him. For these precious moments, his mind was free from worry. But as they approached the lion enclosure once again, Adam's pulse quickened. Michael had insisted on returning, captivated by the lion's power and grace. He pressed close to the glass, his face lit with awe as he watched one of the lions stretch lazily, revealing massive, sharp teeth. Adam felt a swell of pride, seeing his son face to face with the creature he admired most. Then Adam noticed Earl standing at the edge of the enclosure, his face set in a hard, unfriendly expression, his gaze fixed intently on Michael. A chill ran down Adam's spine, and he found himself stepping instinctively closer to his son, his protective instincts flaring. Earl's presence was no longer a simple discomfort, it felt like a threat. "Stay close to me, buddy," Adam murmured, placing a hand on Michael's shoulder as he glanced at his wife. Lily's eyes mirrored his own concern, her smile fading as she too noticed Earl's gaze. They decided to move on, hoping to avoid further attention, but as they turned to leave, Adam felt a sudden, sharp shove from behind. He stumbled, barely catching himself in time, and turned quickly, his heart pounding. Earl had disappeared into the crowd, but the unease in Adam's gut remained. Lily's eyes were wide with alarm, her voice shaking as she whispered, "Adam, are you all right?" Adam nodded, though his hands trembled. He wanted to believe it was an accident, that maybe someone had jostled him unintentionally, but deep down, he knew the truth. This was no coincidence. Earl's hostility was no longer just an unsettling feeling, it was a real physical threat. Taking a steadying breath, Adam kept a tight hold on Michael's hand, his mind racing. They needed a break, some space to regain their calm, so they led Michael to a nearby picnic area. Michael, blissfully unaware of the tension swirling around them, dug into a sandwich, chattering about all the things he still wanted to see. Adam tried to shake off the unsettling incident, focusing instead on Michael's joy. But just as they were finishing lunch, Adam saw Earl again, approaching them with a small group of other zoo staff. His expression was unreadable, yet his eyes held that same dark intensity. The anger in Adam's chest flared, but Lily placed a calming hand on his arm. "Let's finish the day, Adam," she urged softly. "For Michael." Adam nodded, forcing a smile as they gathered their things. But in his heart, he knew that something was terribly wrong, and he was certain he'd need to stay vigilant to keep his family safe. As the day wore on, Adam's tension remained, his senses alert for any sign of Earl. Michael, however, was as enthusiastic as ever, tugging his parents toward each new exhibit. They visited the tropical rainforest, where Michael laughed at the brightly colored parrots, then wandered through the reptile house, his fascination with snakes and lizards as strong as ever. Watching him, Adam tried to let go of his fears and focus on the wonder in his son's eyes. But when they returned to the lion enclosure, the shadow that had been looming over the day suddenly became inescapable. As they arrived, Earl appeared, stepping into their path with a look of barely concealed hostility. His presence felt ominous, his gaze fixed on Michael with an intensity that sent a chill through Adam's bones. Adam tightened his grip on Michael's hand, his heart pounding as he considered turning back. But before he could move, the crowd around them thickened, and in a split second Earl lunged forward, pushing Michael toward the edge of the enclosure. Time slowed as Adam watched in horror, his son teetering on the brink before losing his balance. Michael's terrified scream filled the air as he tumbled into the enclosure, his small body landing hard on the ground below. A collective gasp erupted from the crowd, people screaming in disbelief. Adam's world narrowed to a single horrifying sight, his son lying motionless in the lion's territory. The massive creatures began to stir, their golden eyes locking onto the small figure that had invaded their domain. Beside him, Lily tried to climb over the railing, panic-stricken, but Adam pulled her back, holding her tightly. He couldn't let anything happen to her, too. Around them, the crowd erupted in chaos, people shouting for help, and the zoo staff scrambling to respond. But Adam's focus remained on Michael, lying helpless and still, surrounded by powerful creatures that could end his life in an instant. A flicker of movement caught his eye as Michael began to push himself up, his little hands trembling as he tried to gather his bearings. His wide, frightened eyes landed on the lion, a massive, muscular beast whose amber gaze was fixed on him with a quiet, lethal intensity. "Michael, stay still," Adam shouted, his voice shaking with fear. He knew that any sudden movement could provoke the lions, and the thought of his son being attacked was more than he could bear. Michael, hearing his father's command, froze, his entire body tense as he fought the instinct to run. The lion slowly rose to its feet, muscles rippling beneath its fur as it took a step toward him. For a heart-stopping moment, Adam felt the world still, fear pulsing through him as he watched the unimaginable scene below. His son was face to face with the lion, defenseless and small. And Adam could do nothing but pray that somehow, against all odds, his boy would survive. As the crowd held its breath, Michael remained frozen, his small frame dwarfed by the looming lion just a few feet away. He could feel the rough earth beneath his hands, the sun beating down on him, and most of all, the lion's gaze, a heavy, watchful presence that seemed to pierce through him. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to flee this terrifying creature, but his father's words echoed in his mind, "Stay still." The lion took another step forward, its golden eyes never leaving Michael. For a brief, electrifying moment, their eyes locked. Michael's heart pounded in his chest, yet he felt something shift within him. A strange calmness settling over him as he stared into the lion's unblinking gaze. The creature's power was undeniable, yet there was something gentle in its movements, something curious and cautious. He could feel the weight of the lion's gaze, as though it was assessing him, trying to understand. And somehow, Michael sensed that the lion didn't see him as a threat. In the face of his fear, he felt a connection, an unspoken understanding that defied explanation. Slowly, he extended his trembling hand, driven by a silent urge to reach out. The lion paused, tilting its massive head, its gaze softening. Then, to the astonishment of the crowd, it took a step closer, lowering its head until its nose was just inches from Michael's outstretched fingers. Michael held his breath, every nerve in his body on edge as the lion sniffed at his hand. Then, in a gesture that seemed almost tender, the lion nudged his fingers with its rough nose. The crowd gasped, the tension breaking as they watched in stunned silence. In that moment, it was as if the lion recognized something in Michael. Perhaps his innocence, his bravery. Michael felt a surge of gratitude, a feeling of kinship with this magnificent creature who had shown him mercy. With one last nuzzle, the lion stepped back, its powerful frame retreating into the shade. Michael watched it go, his heart filled with wonder and a strange sadness, as if he were parting with an old friend. Above him, his parents clung to each other, their eyes brimming with tears of relief. Zookeepers arrived quickly, one of them carefully entering the enclosure to lift Michael to safety. As he was carried out, Michael glanced back one last time, meeting the lion's calm gaze. It was a memory he knew would stay with him forever, a silent, profound connection that would mark him for life. When Michael was finally returned to his parents, Adam and Lily embraced him, their hearts full of relief and gratitude. Adam kissed the top of his son's head, his voice breaking as he whispered, "You were so brave, Michael. I'm so proud of you." Michael managed a small, tired smile. "I wasn't scared, Dad," he whispered. "The lion knew I was brave." Adam's heart swelled with pride and relief as he held his son close, vowing to protect him with every fiber of his being. Whatever lay ahead, he knew they had witnessed something miraculous, and he was forever grateful. That evening, after returning home, the Sanders family sat in silence, the weight of the day's events settling heavily around them. Michael had fallen asleep almost immediately after dinner, his exhaustion overwhelming him. Adam and Lily remained in the living room, their hands clasped tightly as they tried to process the nightmare they had endured. Adam's mind replayed the moment over and over. The horror of watching his son fall, the unimaginable relief of seeing him safe. Yet as he recalled Earl's face, the twisted satisfaction as he shoved Michael into the lion's enclosure, Adam felt a surge of anger so intense he could hardly contain it. He knew that this wasn't over. Earl had endangered his son's life, and Adam was determined to hold him accountable. "We can't let him get away with this," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. He could have killed our son." Adam nodded, his resolve hardening. "I know. We'll do everything in our power to make sure he faces the consequences." They spent the next morning calling lawyers, determined to pursue justice. By the afternoon, they had arranged a meeting with a lawyer named Victor Gray, a calm and collected man who listened intently as they recounted the events at the zoo. "This is a serious case," Victor said, his tone grave. "We have grounds for a lawsuit against the zoo, and Earl's actions clearly constitute criminal behavior. I assure you, the law is on your side." Feeling a surge of relief, Adam and Lily agreed to move forward. In the days that followed, the incident attracted media attention. News outlets were quick to pick up the story of Michael's miraculous escape and the hostility he and his family had faced. Interviewers sought out Adam and Lily, and their stories struck a chord with the public. Parents across the city expressed outrage, and the community rallied around the Sanders family, offering messages of support and encouragement. The zoo was soon under intense scrutiny, with many calling for a thorough investigation into their hiring practices. Public pressure forced the zoo's management to respond, and they issued a statement promising a full investigation and reforms to improve visitor safety. Earl was suspended pending the investigation, and as details about his past emerged, it became clear that his hostility was not an isolated incident. Colleagues and former visitors came forward, sharing stories of his aggressive behavior, painting a troubling picture of a man who should never have been in a position of authority. While the investigation continued, Adam and Lily focused on helping Michael heal. Though he was resilient, the trauma had left its mark. Michael experienced nightmares, his sleep disrupted by memories of the lion's gaze and the fall into the enclosure. Adam and Lily comforted him as best as they could, encouraging him to talk about his feelings and reminding him that he was safe. One night, as Adam sat beside Michael's bed, his son looked up with wide, questioning eyes. "Dad?" Michael whispered, "Why did that man push me? Did I do something wrong?" Adam's heart ached as he held his son's hand, his voice gentle and full of conviction. "No, Michael, you didn't do anything wrong. Some people act out of anger or hate, but you did nothing to deserve it. You're brave and kind, and none of this was your fault." Michael nodded slowly, his face thoughtful. "The lion wasn't mad at me. He knew I wasn't going to hurt him. Adam felt a swell of pride and sadness, his son's words a reminder of the innocence and courage he had shown. Yes, Michael, he knew, and I think he understood your bravery, just like I do. As he tucked his son in, Adam vowed to see their fight for justice through to the end. No one would threaten his family again, and he would make sure of it. The day of the trial arrived, the culmination of weeks of preparation and resolve. Adam stood in the courthouse, Lily by his side, her hand firmly in his, as they prepared to face Earl for the first time since the incident. The courtroom was tense, filled with reporters and supporters who had followed their story. Across from them sat Earl, his face expressionless, but Adam could feel the malice simmering beneath his stoic exterior. As the trial began, both sides presented their arguments, with the zoo's management admitting to lapses in oversight and Earl's pattern of hostile behavior. Witnesses testified, recounting Earl's aggression toward visitors, particularly those he seemed to resent for reasons he never voiced aloud. The court reviewed the security footage, and gasps filled the room as everyone watched Earl's deliberate shove, his calculated malice laid bare. When Adam took the stand, he spoke with unwavering conviction. He described the terror of that day, the helplessness of watching his son fall into the lion's enclosure, and the profound relief when Michael emerged unharmed. "This isn't just about our family," Adam said, his voice filled with emotion. "This is about ensuring that no parent ever has to experience the fear I felt that day. We need accountability. We need justice." The courtroom sat in silence, every word sinking in. The case against Earl was strong, and as the trial reached its end, Adam felt a glimmer of hope. The judge handed down the verdict. Earl was found guilty of endangerment and reckless behavior, facing both legal penalties and a permanent ban from working in public spaces. The court mandated that the zoo implement new policies to improve visitor safety and employee conduct. Relief washed over Adam and Lily as the verdict was announced. The nightmare that had haunted their family was finally over, and justice had been served. Later, the zoo held a public apology, inviting the Sanders family as honorary guests. The director expressed regret for what had happened, promising that changes would be made to prevent future incidents. As part of the apology, Michael was given a special opportunity to revisit the zoo. Though the memories were fresh, he was determined to face his fear. With his parents by his side, Michael walked through the zoo's familiar paths, each step a reminder of his bravery. When they reached the lion's enclosure, he stood quietly, gazing at the majestic creature resting in the shade. The lion's calm, amber eyes met Michael's, and for a fleeting moment, Michael felt the same connection he had sensed that day. "Thank you," he whispered softly, as though the lion could understand. "You knew I wasn't a threat." The lion's gaze was steady, serene, and Michael felt a sense of peace settle over him. He turned to his parents with a quiet smile, a weight lifting from his heart. As they left the zoo, Adam placed a reassuring hand on Michael's shoulder, pride swelling within him. His son had faced a fear that most could never fathom, and in doing so, he had shown a courage that would shape him for years to come. Life slowly returned to normal in the weeks that followed. Away from the media's attention, the Sanders family found peace in their quiet moments at home. Though the memory of the incident would always be a part of their story, it no longer defined them. They had triumphed over fear, prejudice, and injustice, discovering a new strength in themselves and in each other. One night, as Adam and Michael sat together under the stars, Michael leaned against his father, his voice soft with wonder. "Dad, I think the lion knew I was brave." Adam wrapped his arm around his son, his smile gentle. "He did, Michael, and he showed you that sometimes even the strongest creatures can be kind." Michael nodded, a peaceful look on his face as he gazed up at the night sky. In that moment, Adam knew they had found something more valuable than justice alone. They had found hope, a hope that would carry them forward, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our latest videos. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Thank you all for taking the time to watch, and see you in the next video.